The right to choose is their unequivocal right. Not only do I believe they have the right to choose, I believe that they shouldn't have to consult anybody except for a physician about how they exercise that right. Gentlemen, that is fair. And ladies, to be fair to us, I also believe if you decide to have the baby, a man should not have to pay. That's fair. If you can kill this, I can at least abandon him. It's my money, my choice. And if I'm wrong, then perhaps we're wrong.
Well, wasn't that something? Wasn't that something? Now, Dave Chappelle is clearly no friend to the pro-life movement. He goes pretty hard after men speaking out on abortion, though, of course, he's giving his opinions on abortion. Maybe he should be made aware of that. So he's obviously no friend to the pro-life movement, and yet he seemingly unintentionally exposes the consequences of putting ideology before reality, of advancing pro-choice narratives that have no basis in truth, that have no basis in facts, at the expense of facts, at the expense of actual reality of what is biologically true. Because when you deny the objective and biological reality that unborn babies are humans and humans have rights, that ideology has intellectual consequences. It has intellectual consequences that oftentimes the pro-choice movement suddenly becomes very uncomfortable with. And it's clear that his audience wasn't sure whether to laugh at his statement or stay silent or scream at him when he said, if you can kill this MFer, I can at least abandon him. This is because the universe tends to have a certain coherence to it. There is a divine logic that guides humanity. Pro-choicers may reject certain aspects of that divine logic, as they do with abortion, but we are compelled to accept other parts of it. The same God that made you made the laws that inform your subjective sense of morality. Because everyone's a relativist until they have their wallet stolen. Everyone's a relativist until they're pro-choice and they're told they can't have abortion. All of a sudden, they think there's objective truth. So if the ideology of bodily autonomy at any cost trumps the reality that a baby is a baby and is a human being with rights, and how could anyone say it's wrong for men to refuse to pay child support for that same baby? If it's true that babies are not humans and have no rights, and therefore it's okay to rip them limb from limb, that is significantly worse than abandoning them. So if that's okay, why shouldn't we allow fathers to refuse to pay child support? You see, the consequences of pro-choice ideology suddenly make supporters of abortion uncomfortable, because very few pro-choice individuals actually would vote for allowing fathers to never pay a dime to the woman they impregnated and the children that they fathered. Especially if those children are born, because according to pro-choicers, you do have value once you've been born. But if you can kill that same baby right before it's born, then it's the same baby right after it's born. And if it's the same baby right after it's born, and the birth canal is not a magical birth canal that confers personhood, then it should be perfectly acceptable to abandon that baby and never pay child support. So if it's not wrong to kill a baby, how could it be wrong to not support a baby? And yet Chappelle says, and if I'm wrong, then maybe we're wrong. If I'm wrong in saying that if you can kill a baby, I can abandon it and never pay child support for the child's entire life, if I'm wrong, then maybe we're wrong about this whole thing. Now, whether he intended to communicate that message is an entirely different conversation, but he did indeed communicate it. Why? Because reality has an annoying tendency of reasserting itself in our lives. Because we live in God's world and we have to abide by his laws. Even if we reject certain aspects of that moral law, we accept other aspects of it. We can't avoid but accept certain aspects of God's moral law because eternity is written on the heart of man. We live in God's world. So our minds are going to abide by his laws, even if we don't do it consistently all the time. So if it is wrong to abandon a baby and refuse to pay child support, it must certainly be wrong to kill that same child. If the ideology you worship and live according to has intellectual consequences like we just saw, and you don't like that, and you reject the consequences of that ideology, then there's something wrong with your ideology. If your ideology leads to bad consequences you don't like, it's not your opponent's fault. It's the ideology you've accepted's fault. So who knew that Dave Chappelle was going to show us the consequences of putting ideology before reality?